Erica here, back with more Vlogmas, and today I want to talk about my least favorite books that I read in 2016. Some of these surprised me as I was compiling this list, and some that I thought were going to make it on this list have actually kind of settled well with me, so I don't hate them as much as I might have when I first read them. There weren't too many books in 2016 that I really hated, or that I had to throw across the room, but there were a few, and then there were some that just didn't sit quite right with me or weren't what I expected, so those are what comprises most of the stack I have today. The first book I have did surprise me that ended up on this list, but the longer I've thought about this book, the more problematic I found it, and I'm debating kind of adding an addendum to the review I did on it recently for Vlogmas, and that is Nicotine by Nell Zink. Like I said, I did a whole review on this book, so I did talk in that review about the problematic elements of this book, which you can definitely go check out. But basically, this is the story of a girl whose father dies, and she kind of pseudo-inherits this house that used to be his and finds a squatter community living there, and she kind of befriends them and falls into their lives. The issues that I had with it had to do with its portrayal of sexuality and with mental illness. And again, I will link to my review so you can go check those out because I don't want this to turn into a super long ranting video. But again, I originally gave it 3 stars, but the longer I've thought about it and the more I've kind of digested it, the more problematic I've found it. And so I would say that this didn't sit that well with me, and I was a little bit disappointed in it, so that is why it is on this list. Next, I have another book that I recently read, and that is a nonfiction book. This is The Flytrap by Friedrich Schauberg. I was really excited about this because it sounded really interesting. It's a kind of memoir collection of essays by Schauberg about his life as an entomologist living on a remote Swedish island. And I was very interested in that element. And, you know, the blurb kind of says that he ruminates on what it means to live on an island and why he's attracted to that kind of lifestyle, as well as kind of his work as an entomologist and as a collector. And there is a lot of that in there, but this book took kind of a turn in a direction that I wasn't expecting and really focused on the life of a famous entomologist who I wasn't very interested in, and it kind of got stuck there. So I just found this to be a little bit of a mess. I really enjoyed like the first quarter of it, and then I very quickly lost interest and thought it was a little bit untidy, and it kind of felt like a lot of different concepts mashed up into one. Next, I have a couple of classics that I read this year that I really didn't like. The first one was Candide by Voltaire. I was really disappointed by this. I've been looking forward to reading it for ages because I've heard really wonderful things about it, and it's a very comical satire, but I found the comedy to be very repetitive, and like maybe it just wasn't my kind of comedy, but I found it funny for like the first little bit, but the comedic elements, it just felt very repetitive, and like I was in a loop, and I was like, I get it, it's funny kind of thing. Again, this is one of those books that maybe if I had studied it kind of in an academic setting or had bothered to do any research on it, I would have liked it better, but as kind of an isolated reading experience, I really didn't care for it. And then I have Persuasion by Jane Austen. I have said before that I'm not a huge Austen fan, and one day I might do a video on why I'm not, but this is my 4th or 5th Jane Austen novel that I've read, and my least favorite so far. I found the characters really dull. I'm not really into like the whole marriage plot thing that Austen does. I don't find these books to be particularly warm or comforting to me, and I understand why people do, but they're just totally not my thing. I thought that the characters were boring. I was bored to tears by this book, so that's why it's here. Next, I have a book that I talked about a little bit in a wrap-up, but haven't really proclaimed my public feelings for, but that is Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, the screenplay. I hated it. I wish it never existed, and that's all the time I'm going to give to it on this channel before I get rid of it. Then I have 2 more novels. The first is a historical fiction novel, and that is Margaret I by Daniel Dutton. This is getting a lot of attention and a lot of hype, and I was really excited to read it. It's a historical fiction about Margaret Cavendish, who was the first woman to publish fiction in England, and so I was really excited about that. I loved, again, with a lot of these books, I really enjoyed the first, quarter or third of the book, and then it just kind of went downhill for me. Like, it couldn't sustain its own momentum. And I did definitely find that with this book. I think that the writing was really beautiful for a while, but then I felt like the writing kind of overtook any plot or character development there could be. Like, I felt like the author was more focused on writing beautiful sentences than presenting a story. Also, the way that this is told is kind of unique. It jumps forward in time a lot, so you go from, like, reading about 1 year for a little while, and then it jumps forward like 10 years, and I found that a little bit convoluting. Also, just not a big historical fiction person in general, so I'm not so shocked that I didn't enjoy this. And overall, just wasn't a fantastic book for me. And then I have another book that I've actually done a review of, and that is The Nest by Cynthia Dupree Sweeney. Again, a super hyped book this year, and one that I was severely let down by. I thought that this was basically 400 pages of white people problems, and sorry, it's 350 pages of white people problems. I found the characters to be seriously underdeveloped. I really didn't like it. It's also just like one of the whitest books I've ever read, and I found it to be very bland and uninteresting. So, those are some possibly controversial opinions about my least favorite reads of this year. If you would like to discuss any of these in the comments, we can do that, and I hope that you all are having a lovely day. Thank you for watching.